Hello and welcome back to Joe's Math Tools. In our session today, we are calculating the LCM using the division ladder when we have three ladders and three numbers and they have a common factor. And if you want to see how this is done, let's get started. So today we will be calculating the LCM using the division ladder when we're using three separate ladders for our three separate numbers. Now when using three separate division ladders, sometimes the work can get a little bit messy if you don't know how to go through the steps. But today we're going to learn how we are able to do that using the three separate ladders. And I also have a video loaded on how you can calculate the LCM when you have three numbers and using one single division ladder. So based on your strength, you can check out both of these videos and see how you can apply both steps to help you develop your skills. So let's start with the number 45. So prime number that I can divide into 45 will be the number 5. 5 divides into 45 9 times. I'm going to divide 9 by 3. 3 divides into 9 3 times. I will continue using the number 3 and 3 will divide into 3 once. So my prime factors for the number 45 will equal to 3 times 3 times 5. So let's begin prime factorizing the number 18. Our prime number that I can use for the number 18 will be 3 again. 3 will divide to 18 6 times. I'm going to continue with the number 3. 3 will divide to 6 twice. We will now use the number 2, and 2 will divide to 2 once. So the prime factors for our number 18 will be 2 times 3 times 3, and that will be our 18. So let's prime factorize the number 90. I will begin using the number 3 to prime factorize 90, and 3 will divide to 93 30 times. I will continue with using 3. 3 will divide to 30 10 times. I will now use the number 5. 5 will divide to 10 twice. And then we will end by using the number 2 to divide into 2 once. So my prime factors for the number 90 is equal to 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. Now when you're given a set of prime factors and you have to calculate the LCM, just like we would for the HCF, we're going to begin by first grouping our like pairs together. Now this is important when you are calculating the LCM and the HCF. So I'm going to be circling all of my 3's. I will start here. I know that's an odd way to circle them, but we have to circle the pairs as best we can. I also have another 3 here, where I will also circle these 3 together. And here's the last thing I want you to remember. When it comes to the division ladder and you have separate ladders, I know that we are usually always taught to circle our 3 pairs, but remember that with the division ladder, anywhere that there is a pair or grouping of numbers that are the same, you're going to also circle those numbers as well. And I will also explain why that is so important to circle that those extra numbers as well. So after I've done my calculation, I will also go back and I will show you why it's important that we circle those numbers. Okay, so now let's pull one number from each pair. Remember that we do not use both numbers. We always use one number from each grouping to make sure that our calculation is on point as much as possible. So we take one from our 2, one from our 3's, one from our next group of 3, And then finally, we will take 1 from our group with our 5s. And once we have done that, we will now begin our multiplication. Remember that we do not put commas or periods between the numbers, but we do put in our multiplication symbol. So we will multiply 3 times 2, which will be 6. And I will multiply my 3 times 5, which will be 15. And 15 times 6 will equal to 90. So the LCM of these 3 numbers is 90. And here's why it's so important that you circle the pairs. If we hadn't circled the 5 and the 2, remember with the LCM and the division ladder, we usually use each number once. So for example, we'd circle the pairs, and then each number that is left over, we would also multiply those numbers individually. And I think I did do a video on how I calculate the LCM of these 3 numbers on a single ladder, so that you can have an idea as to how the 2 process works differently when we have 3 separate ladders and then when we have 1 single ladder, which is very important that you understand the rules between the 2, because it plays an important role with you being able to calculate those numbers correctly. Now, if I had not circled the numbers, the 2 and 5 separately, I would at this point then be multiplying, my 3 times 3, and then I would have a 2 times 2, because remember that with the division ladder, once a number is there and we're using the ladder, especially for LCM, every number gets used. So this is why it's important that you group these numbers. So if we didn't group them, then I would be multiplying 9 times 4 times 25, and then I know that 4 times 25, I'm just trying to do the quick math, would be 100, and then 9 times 100 would be 900. And we can see that 900 is a rather big number to say that this is the LCM. But then if I go back to Old Faithful, and I love my Old Faithful because Old Faithful is the listing method. So if I was to refer back to the listing method and I listed the multiples for 45, and I'm just going to stop at 90 because 90 was the first or the lowest common multiple that came out first. So with 45, I will have 45 and then 90. So it's 45 times 1 is 45. 45 times 2 will give me 90. And then if I was to look at my next number, which is 18, and I was to go through the multiples of 18, out of 18 times 1 is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. Then we have 18 times 3 will give us 54. 18 times 4 will give us 72. And then 18 times 5 will give us 90. And then naturally, if we go to the 90 time table, of course, the first multiple listed will be 90. So we can see in looking at these numbers that the LCM is indeed 90, which is why we must circle those pairs and not do it this way and leave the other numbers just, I would say, willy-nilly hanging about and then using them singularly, because that will present a problem when it comes to calculating your LCM. So remember, when you're using 3 separate division ladder, that even if there is a common pair between your numbers, you are still going to circle them to make sure that that pair gets, or that number gets used only once and not multiple times. And like I always tell you, when you calculate the LCM of your numbers, except for those cases where you get those ridiculously large numbers, you can always check by going back to your basics and listing your multiples to check your answer. That method has never changed. It has always been faithful, and it has always helped with verifying your answers. Okay, so make sure that you get some additional practice in. Practice calculating your LCM with 2 or 3 numbers. You don't have to start with large numbers, but just start with smaller numbers that you can manage to list the timetable of to help develop your skills and become better. And until next time, this is Jules Math Tools, where math is made easy.